In this video, we will be basically looking at the course schedule for 602. And you'll see that the assignments are listed by weeks and what are in the assignments for the week. So you'll see that I have an introduction online through Collaborate. In other words, the next video will be talking about what's in Collaborate. I've already did a review of the syllabus and I discussed some information about the assignments and expectations. And we're going to do more of that as we get into Blackboard. I'm going to do a review of competencies. In other words, when we get in Blackboard, I'll show you exactly where the competencies links are, and I'll be talking about how each of the competencies are associated with the assignments as I do a video lecture for each one of the chapters per se. So just know also that Unit 1, I have the review video that I will be doing in this process, and then you have your learning objectives. So you're going to read Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of the textbook, and basically you're going to be you're going to have a discussion question also in this first week. So here again, it's, expected of you to read chapters 1 and 2 and get a clear understanding. And as I do the video lecture, I'm going to talk about the learning objectives and how the competencies align itself with the assignment. So that's going to be week 1. As we move into week 2 lessons, again, I'm going to have another video lecture for you that looks at that. You're going to have your learning objectives. And then we're going to do chapters 3 and 4. And then you're going to have your discussion requests. And in week 2, you'll see that your first assignment is due, and that's knowing oneself. And I'll show you where that's in Blackboard and where everything is at under that week 1, where you have your example of what assignment 1 looks like, and basically you're following the rubrics to ensure that you complete the assignment in detail. Here again, it's very important that you apply critical thinking, pay attention to detail. Do not take shortcuts in this course. I recommend that you answer questions thoroughly and completely and not try to summarize questions to form one answer. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for you to apply critical thinking, respond thoroughly to each one of the questions or each one of the assignments that's basically asked of you. As we look at week 3, again, I'm going to be doing a video lecture of chapter 5 and 6. Which is going to be a summary of chapter 5 and 6. And you also have the PowerPoints that's going to be loaded in Blackboard that will also help you with the course. And then again, you have a discussion assignment that you have to respond to in week 3. As we move on to week 4, you'll see again. So for every week, I'm going to give you a video lecture summary of the chapters, the 2 chapters. And then you're going to have the assignment that you have to respond to. And also in week 4, which is right around the time we would normally be doing a midterm. And so you're going to be doing assignment 2, knowing oneself. You're going to be doing a self-assessment of yourself. And again, I must stress that it's important that you apply critical thinking and you be very thorough in answering the assignments. And basically be attentive to what is expected of you. Okay, week 5, again, as I said, you see that it's a video lecture to include the 2 chapters with the objectives and the competencies. Even though it's not there, you will have the competencies for each one of the chapters. And it's important that you understand those competencies and understand how those competencies align itself. So when you get in field, because one of the questions, if they were to evaluate you, evaluate the program for accreditation, one of the questions they may ask you is, okay, what assignments you did in diversity? and you may say, I did an assessment of oneself, okay, which is you. Knowing oneself, and it's a self-assessment. And so you would have to respond to what competencies that involve in, which is competency one, and what questions in competency one that you're addressing. So that's what's going to be expected of you through this whole master's program. Understanding how the competencies aligns itself with the assignment and the different areas that falls under those competencies. Okay, chapter 6, again, you have your video lecture to include the reading assignments for chapter 11 and 12. And then you have your third assignment, which is that team assignment I talked to you about. And that's worth 35% of your grade. So you're going to be breaking up into teams or groups. So it'll be 4 groups of 3s. And so it'll be 3 individual in each one of the groups working on this particular assignment. And that's going to be worth 35% of each of your grades. Okay, so you want to be very attentive to that. Again, you have a discussion question there, and you'll see that in the discussions that there are 2 discussions question there. If you just answered one and didn't touch on the other, you're going to find that you're going to lose points in this particular program. It's very important that we pay very attention to details, that we're answering all of the questions thoroughly. We're supporting it with peer review articles or the textbook or something from another textbook. So it's very important that you are able to do that, in addition to doing it in APA format. You know, a lot of times students will reference the textbook and they would do it wrong. They would leave out the publisher date, or they may leave out the subject, or they may spell out both of the names. Well, that's not in accordance to APA. So I recommend, if you don't have an APA manual, 7th edition, you might as well get one, because you will be needing it, and you will find that you're going to lose points in those areas, which means that the grading system might be a little tougher. Well, not might, I'm going to tell you, it will be a little tougher in the master's program. So it's a learning process that you would have to go through. And so as we move on through these things, I expect you to understand your feedback and be able to accept it and be able to make adjustments once you get those feedback. Okay, week 7 will be the learning objectives to include competencies. You will also have chapter 13 and 14, and you have a discussion questions there that you would have to respond to. So you have basically 2 discussion questions there also. Here again, this is not an area where you put things in your own word and try to justify what you're saying without utilizing some form of peer review articles. You can paraphrase an article, you can paraphrase a textbook, but to say, I put this in my own words, well, what are you basing all of that on? What textbook, what article? So it's not about putting things in your word. It's not about giving me your assumptions without supporting it with some form of peer review articles, basically using evidence-based practice. That's what I'm looking for in this course. As we look at week 8, of course, the course evaluation is very essential for each of you to complete a course evaluation. As I said before, we are at the start of a whole new master's program, and you're the first cohort going through this program. So your feedback, your response to each of the questions will all be supportive of what is expected of you. You'll find also in this course that you're going to have a pre and post test. Okay, and so basically what I'm telling you is that you're going to respond to questions that you may or may not know the answer to without the textbook, or some of you may try to do it with the textbook, but those same questions are going to be asked of you and the post test. So you'll find me saying, hey, here's some of the questions that we talked about in the pre and post test. So you may find me going over those in my discussion with you in the course so you can have an understanding of what's expected of you at the end of this course. So that ends what's required of you in the course schedule and where assignments are. I noticed we didn't talk due dates. I didn't put due dates there because when we get in Blackboard, you're going to see where things are and when things are due for you. So it's just like in the BSW program where you could complete one assignment at a time. You won't have all of your assignment open up to you at one time, so you can pick and choose which assignment you want to respond to. So in other words, we're going to work with week 1, and when Sunday gets ready to close at the end of week 1, we're going to start week 2. So here again, that's the end of this video that looks at Social Work 602 course outline.